know that even if you didn't make a sale, you're okay, because that engagement you're going to learn so much from that it's going to just leave you better off on your next engagement. You see what I'm saying? Where LOs seem to go backwards or they lose and they go on this losing streak is they don't understand how to adapt. And so they continuously use one method and one method only, regardless. So one method, door slammed. One method, door slammed. Next thing you know, it's 99 door slammed in their face. I'm like, fuck! They start getting mad. But why don't you just switch it up? Change it, right? If they don't answer to this type of knock, fucking have fun with it. Right? Like, switch it up. Yeah.
What's up, guys?
Hey, hello.
Appreciate you guys taking some time to sit with me. I love this stuff. I don't know why. But there's this one thing that I came across, and I think you heard me say it in the meeting that I did on Red Hill. It's like the teacher learns the most, right? And it's because you're relearning the stuff that you're actually teaching. And so it helps me because I'm still currently originating. As you guys probably hear me on the phones, I'm still pitching deals. I'm still going through the same objections that you guys are going through. And I promised Chip an opportunity to sit with you guys when you guys got your feet wet. And so now you guys have kind of had a month or two of actually going through that grind and actually really facing the struggles, because when I spoke to some of you earlier, you had an idea, but you didn't necessarily go through it yet, right? So here's a good opportunity to actually take what you've learned, and we're gonna go through some of the questions on how to actually better apply it. And so these lessons are not just things that I implement, but you also see the individuals on my team as well implement them, and they're having a lot of success. So obviously our goal is, and I didn't realize you guys get paid the same amount as the other LOs. So I mean, you guys have a good opportunity, because the top LOs that were listed today each cleared over 20K in a month. So that's a really good opportunity for you guys just to come out from the gate. And if you can learn how to do it from a junior level, make 20 grand, then I mean the sky's the limit when you guys actually graduate to become senior loan officers, right? So before I begin, a few things that I wish I knew before actually becoming a senior loan officer is the borrowers that you close now should be set up in a way where they are already expecting to do business with you again in 6 to 12 months. Because in 6 to 12 months, your pipeline should represent about 30 to 40% of recapture business, redo business. And that's how these top producers are able to get 15 plus units. It's not 15 brand new loans, right? It's a good handful of them are loans that they've either done business with before or are referrals. And so you have to look at your book of business as your book of business. Don't treat every relationship as if that's the last time you're going to work with them. If anything, it's going to help you close the deal and put a little bit more glue on it if you ever have to sell a higher rate, or if you're ever pushing like an FHA loan, because there are certain areas where they're going to say, oh, but AD, isn't this a higher rate than what the market is giving? You have to leverage, like, yeah, you know what, I'm glad you brought that up, because ultimately this is just your bridge loan, or this is just your stepping stone to get certain aspects of your financial profile improved first, right? So like your FICO better, debts consolidated, and then once all that's done, after your sixth payment, we're going to step back in, we're going to help you do it again. And at that time, we can actually help maybe even shorten the term, shorten the life of your loan. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that helps them digest it, because they always have this misconception that they're going to be in that loan forever. And the truth of the matter is, the longest that they keep it's usually about 18 months. You know what I mean? So why I bring that up is because you guys have you guys have a lot of open time to originate business, and what you close right now is going to end up, you're building your book of business right now, and that book of business NAP does a lot to protect you, to make sure that it stays with you. Got it? Cool. So one of the features in building your career as a loan officer is, if you go to another place, right? Because it just happens. Sales is like that. It's a revolving door. And so if you go to another place, you lose your book of business that you built here. I mean, technically they could reach out to you, but we get triggered and you got killers on that phone with that borrower to keep them with NAF, right? But if you find yourself to build the consistency in your career here, you'll build your book of business so fat where it'll get to a point where 75% of your monthly production is your book of business. Right now, about 90% of my business every month is my book of business. It's my past clients, it's referrals, it's trigger and demands who currently are portfolio leads, right? But we still go through the same challenges. So I'm still competing with the own it's or the owning, whatever.
Mortgage.
That's. I'm still competing with those guys. I'm still competing with Quicken, and so I hope to open up some of the experience to you guys because I'm sure there's a lot of variables that are kind of sitting behind the challenges that you guys are going through right now. So I guess we'll start with maybe this side. We'll go through any of the questions that were written down, or I know there's only like 5 of you that actually brought Chip questions, right?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So one of my first questions was, how do you pitch a rate that has a buy down to a borrower who's cost sensitive?
Okay.
For their benefit.
Okay. So buy down is something Ray Villalpando, you guys know who he is, right?
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
single loan he sells is with points. And so he'd be a good person to actually study. Some of his scenarios I don't necessarily agree with selling points, like you don't sell points on an FHA loan because an FHA loan is not a long-term play, right? So really what it comes down to, I think in any situation, whether you're selling points or not, is it comes down to the actual scenario. What's gonna actually improve the borrower and position them to achieve long-term wealth and long-term gain. And that's the type of message you need to have with your borrower. It's all about positioning, right? So just like I'm telling you, it's all about positioning in sales, you have to share the same exact message to your borrower. It's all about positioning them to do certain things. And those certain things are going to be all in line with what their true goals are with the house. So if they didn't plan on keeping the house long term and paying it off, I would never recommend to buy the rate down. But if this person was paying their house off or their goal is to pay it off, then I would recommend buying it down. If their goal was to retire in 2 or 3 years, I would recommend to buy it down because that when their income shifts, they're going to want the lower rate and lower payment, right? Also, if their income is at a higher tax bracket, like over 6 figures, they're paying a lot in taxes, and so you use buy down, which is confirmed as a prepaid interest. I never like to say points because points will trigger, right? Like, oh, you charge broker points, but we're not a broker. So I never use the word points or discount points. I always say, yeah, you can actually prepay interest. So since it's interest on your real estate property, it's real estate interest, you could write it off. And most homeowners only do this if they intend never refinance again and pay the house off. So it really depends on the situation of when you should be pushing prepaid interest, right? But I guess to answer your question, for rate sensitive borrowers is your question. So everyone is rate sensitive, right? And when you're new, you will become rate sensitive by default because you're gonna get a lot of the objections of, well, what's your rate? What's your rate? And so we naturally think that because that's the main topic, we need to tell them what they want to hear or they're gonna say no to us, right? So change the way you perceive that and the way you hear it, and come with a default response. A default response is something that's just automatic. So at any given time, if they say, hey Daniel, what's your lowest rate? My default response to that, and I get that all the time, is saying, oh yeah, watch, I'll show you. And now I take control of the conversation, right? I didn't even answer it, but they're under the impression that I'm gonna show them.
Can you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, oh watch, let me show you. Simple, right? And the reason for that is because I can't ever talk figures, and I think Z said it best up on the rally, that if you're talking figures too soon and too early, you're gonna lose right off the bat. And that's a common mistake that newer LOs make, or just LOs who just can't sell. They will burn through leads. And so the example that he gave of an LO taking 100 leads but only closing 3 or 10 is they're making that mistake. They're going straight for pricing, they're going straight for the sale. What we need to understand is that it's not the price or the rate or the fee that is going to make the sale, right? It's a matter of actually conforming your services to be the solution to provide the outcome that they want from our services. Make sense? So in other words, if I know that they're rate cautious, then my first instinct in any sale is to look for leverage points. So leverage points are things like like how much they currently have in checking and savings, right? How much debt do they have? How much available cash flow do they have? And so who here is using the script that I wrote when you're taking your inbound calls?
Well, yeah, partial.
Partial? Okay.
Which one is that from? Is that just like?
It's the free script that I have. So the salesremastered.com, you sign up for the free script.
Okay, I'll have to try that.
Yeah, that shit would change your life, bro.
I've been using this since I was 16.
I have the.
Okay, how's it working?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I use the 4 pillars thing, like when I'm evaluating my borrowers. I use like the income, the capacity, and that stuff to like see if they're all around. But that's something I've come across as someone who's like just cost sensitive with that. But that definitely helps.
Yeah.
That approach.
So the script is designed in a way to give you control of the conversation, right? And so the immediate guard that a prospect has with you is that they don't want to give you their time, they don't want to give you any information, they just want to know if you have free services and the lowest rate that hasn't been available in 3 years, right? That's ultimately what they want. And so we need to kind of dismantle their guard and their resistance so I can get inside their head and figure out their pain points, right? So, and for those of you who aren't using the script, if you're having, I would strongly suggest that you play with it, you use it. Jay Dow uses it verbatim. Luke uses it verbatim. Other agents on the floor use it, but they may have tweaked it out a little bit. And so they make it work for them, and that's the only script that I would ever use. And it's because it's positioning you in a way where it's a win-win and they have nothing to lose. And in marketing, all of us are marketers. At the end of the day, we're just marketers who happen to have an NMLS license. So it's a matter of how you actually market. And how you market it, meaning how do you capture their attention, hold on to it, and control it, right? So that script allows you to control the attention. And up front, they're not going to give you their attention because they're too worried you're going to sell them, you're going to take advantage of them, and someone else has got it cheaper. All right, that's the truth. And so the way that the telemarketing script or the sales script works is it breaks down that resistance, and so you can ask certain questions like, outside of the mortgage, what other debts do you have? So let's start off with revolving debt. So this is where you immediately start driving the conversation. You're looking for leverage points, because there's no point in me talking to someone about a rate and term refinance when they don't need a rate and term refinance, right? There's no point in me talking to someone about a cash out if I don't even know that they need cash out, right? Whereas an inexperienced sales loan officer or the lower producing loan officer right off the bat is going to say, can I interest you any cash out? What if they say no? No, you're kind of pushing them away, right? Say, can I interest you in lowering your rate? But if the rate's lower than what you got, it's a dead end. That makes sense? Right. So you can't go straight to, can I do this? Can I do that? It's offering. Instead, you have to actually serve them. And so the script is designed in a way where you're actually serving them. Right off the bat, it says, hey, thanks for holding. The reason why you're being transferred to me is because I'm licensed and authorized to provide you with the information you need. Now, before I begin, let me just make sure I can even complete the call. I'm going to ask a few basic questions first, and this is going to let me know if I can even help you. Now it's that takeaway, right? It's like, oh shit, I want this.
That is
right?
exactly what Luke does, I recall.
Yeah. So if I can help you, I'm going to show you exactly what I can do. But if I can't, I'm going to help you save a ton of time, and at least I'm going to point you in the right direction. Now it's a win-win. Get it? So even if they wanted to know what my payment and my rate is, even they say, hey, you know what, Daniel, before I even tell you my last name, what's your rate and what's your cost? Yeah, watch, let me show you. And that's where that kicks in, right? So now I redirect that conversation and control the direction it goes into. And so, but then the question is, okay, well, what do you say after that script? And that's where I think a lot of the confusion happens if you're not using the creativity or you don't have the experience. And so I always like to immediately use trigger words that give me immediate rapport with prospect. Because without rapport, you're not going to have further attention
You're not going to be likable. You're not going to get that trust from them, right? So these trigger words are like, hey Jim, the house on Myford, right? So that's a trigger word. That's their address, right? This is your primary residence, right? Yes. Okay, great. So a lot of homeowners in Orange County, another trigger word, right? Because it makes me feel like I'm right there with them. And I'm also making it seem like people like to do what a community does, right? So a lot of homeowners in Orange County actually prefer New American Funding because, we're very transparent. As a matter of fact, the reason why I'm not even going to complete this call if I can't help you is because I need to point you in the right direction, and I wouldn't be able to give you, just any numbers just to give you numbers, right? We don't operate that way. We're a servicer, meaning that we don't sell off our loans. So let me ask you a few basic questions. Let me know if I can complete the call. Outside of the mortgage, Jim, what other debts do you have? Let's start off with revolving debt, right? And just based on your guys' experience, what's the common answer?
Cars. So,
Cars or a HELOC or
Well, starting with revolving debt, right? So
right.
they're going to go with credit card debt.
yeah, credit card.
What are you guys seeing?
Oh, and
It varies actually. Sometimes you have really people who like don't handle their finances very well, and then sometimes you have people with like one credit card. So I mean,
Exactly.
what I mostly see, right now what I've been seeing is people who don't have a lot of debt for some reason. But when I first started, it was a lot of debt.
Well, good.
So-
So let's say if you come across a prospect who says, I don't got any credit card debt. Good. Now I know what direction to kind of point this phone conversation to, right? So then you pivot. And what you're doing by pivoting is you're looking for what's called bridge questions. And so if someone said, I have no credit card debt, I'm gonna pivot in the direction of saying, awesome. You're one of the rare few in the US. Congratulations. So with the intent of this house, are you looking to pay it off as soon as possible? Because there's no other debt, right? So you must have a good amount of savings. And so now I'm going to pivot and talk about paying the house off, or is this kind of a short-term play and you plan to buy another house in the future? If he says, I got 30 grand in credit card debt, I'm going to pivot in the direction and say, okay, with regards to your payments, how much are you sending? Rough estimate's okay. Now, this question does a few things. Number one is it lets you know who you're talking to, right? Whether you're talking to because you're in any pitch, you should never pitch just one party. Usually households, especially if they're married, has what's called a decision maker and a decision influencer. And typically you're always talking to the decision influencer. And the decision influencer is typically the one who doesn't necessarily make the income, right? Whereas the decision maker is the one who actually makes the income. So if the final yes has to come from that person. So if you have to identify who that person is, and they'll tell you things like, I think we pay, right? And so right when you hear we, you know not to talk numbers until you get both people on the phone. If they say I think, then that person he's not emotionally tied to that number. So you could try to sell him all day, but he's not gonna really feel it. And that's what he was talking about, like emotion. People buy with emotion, right? So you wanna make sure you at least capture as much information, because when you do get that other party on the phone, you need to reframe them before you pitch them, right? So, but if they said like, how much do you guys send in payments per month? And this is a question you guys should all be asking. In credit card debts, how much are you guys sending rough estimate per month? Oh, I send about $500. Okay, do you know if that $500 is the bare minimum payments, or are you guys sending above and beyond? And say, well, I think we send just, the bare minimum. A lot of them are gonna say that they send a little bit higher, right? Say, okay, you send a little bit higher. How much higher are you sending? Oh, we probably round it up like $20 or $30. Okay, got it. So you're sending higher than you need to. And then outside of the credit card debts, what other debts do you have? So you're gonna find car loans, student loans, etc., right? And say, okay, great. So in what I'm trying to figure out here, Jim, is what your net income is. So what net income means is that you have your gross before taxes, and then you have your net, which is after taxes. Well, your net is your taxed income after all of your monthly obligations. So like your mortgage, your credit cards, your car, the kids' daycare, your hobbies, dining out, everything, utilities. What is your net income? And then they're gonna say $1,000. Okay, got it. How much and this becomes a bridge question, right? It's because it's bridging me to a specific answer that gives me all of the leverage I need. And so, okay, got it. So your net income's $1,000. How much of that $1,000 are you able to put in checking and savings every month?
They're gonna say, I put maybe 500. Okay, cool. And then how much is your average balance in your checking and savings month to month? And that's the money question. Because you're gonna find out that, they're gonna say, oh, I got like a couple $1,000, or I got $4,000. And say, okay, if you're adding $1,000 per month, right, and you only got 4,000, where's the money going? Oh, we got kids' expenses, and this is where all the leverage comes out. Oh, we got new cars, you know what I mean? Like we just had to replace the water heater or whatever. Okay, got it. So that's probably why you got all this credit card debt, right? Yeah, that's it. Now you're starting to find that rapport and say, okay. So before I go any further, let me ask a few more questions. Now, with regards to income, what do you do for work? All right, and now you're still kind of eluding the fact that you're not sure if you can go forward, but all along you have controlled the conversation. Make sense? So I guess in essence, so that's going to give you a good example where the person who's compiling a ton of debt and living check to check, I would never talk them into buying their rate down, because whatever loan that they do is a short-term play, and that short-term play is typically going to help alleviate the debt, create savings, and improve their FICO. We'll talk about buying the rate down on the next refinance. On the flip side, if they said I got no debt, I got 30 grand in the bank, my FICO is 800, and then I'm gonna say, okay, well, how many years are into your loan are you? I'm 3 years into my loan. What kind of loan did you get? 30? Okay, so you got 27 years. Let me see if I can show you how to actually pay this loan off faster, because it sounds like you got a lot of cash flow. Now I've got his attention even more, right? So if I could wipe out 10 years of your loan, that's 120 payments. What's your poor mortgage payment? 3 grand. 120 times 3 grand. Oh shit, that's $360,000. But you know what? Before I even get that far, let me just make sure this works out for you, right? So I'm taking it away, I'm showing it, I'm taking it away. That's the art of marketing.
I like it.
Very sweet.
Strong.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a question. So something I'm seeing more and more frequently for some reason is maybe a lot of borrowers who they say they're just like shopping quotes, and they talk to maybe like 3-4 different lenders, and one thing they want is, once we get to the credit aspect, they say, well, the other lenders didn't ask me for my credit score, I didn't even do anything with that or with them to get a quote from them, and can you just give me the same quote? And normally what I found recently is that if I kind of give them best case scenario pricing, which I'm mainly not going to qualify for, like 9 times out of 10 they don't qualify for it, that entices them enough to move forward. If it's not on the next call, then right away. But like, what's a good way to just entice them enough to just kind of disregard that and then still go through with the credit pool? Because they're getting quotes left and right. And
Yeah.
when I'm like, I can't give you accurate pricing, they're like, well, I don't like that. Like they give me quotes. Like, why can't you give me quotes? Like, how would you handle that?
So that's why the script is very effective, because it allows you to control the conversation, and as you're completing the process, you're always hinting the notion. Say, you know what, before I go any further, let me just ask you. You know what, before I go any further, let me just ask you. All right, so Jim, it looks like everything you told me, I can go ahead and proceed. I'm gonna show you exactly how to remove yourself from debt. I'm gonna show you how to help improve your FICO. I'm gonna show you how to increase your balance of $4,000 in the bank account. I'm gonna show you how to create a security nest egg in case the water heater breaks down again, right? Because all you're doing is reiterating the words that they said. And now you're framing them up to where they don't give a fuck what other quote, right? They're like, yeah, just show me what you got, D. Right? Because I've just pre-framed them. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and request for a copy of your credit report. When I do, what's your date of birth? Very smooth, right? I won't say, I'm gonna pull your credit, is that okay? And never ask that question, because it's a dead-end question. Always assume it and just make it very easy for them to comply. But let's say if I did all that perfectly and I said, I'm gonna go and request a copy of your credit report, what's your date of birth? Hey, wait, before you pull my credit, all these other lenders, they were quoting me, without pulling my credit. Okay, no worries. If you want generic information or general information, I'm more than happy to send you our latest advertisement. As a matter of fact, you could probably get that on the radio or a TV commercial. But based on all the information you shared with me, it looks like you need a little something more solid than general information, right?
Yeah. So,
okay, yeah, fine. What? 11/21/80. All right. I'll just break it down for you. Does that answer your guys' question? Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
That's good. That was really good.
I had one. It was just literally right before we came in here. She wanted to take cash out, and the appraised value she said was like $300,000. When I looked on property profile, it was like $260, and she wanted to push it all the way up to 80% LTV. what would you do in that case where it's like, you know, property profile says it, Redfin says it most likely isn't going to come in at that value, and eventually it could kill the deal. How would you kind of
Look for a backup plan because that person needs you, right?
Yeah, she needs it.
So if she needs it, then I'm going to stay as close to that as possible. I'm saying, okay, yeah, but in the back of my mind, I'm planning for a plan B. And so if they can't get the 30 grand because the property profile, whatever, I'm not going to talk about property profile.
Right.
Because ultimately what you're doing is you're telling them why you can't do it. Where the next loan officer is not going to be savvy enough to tell them why they can't do it. They're just going to take the business, right? Because at the end of the day, if they go through the process and they spend money on the appraisal with you, they're vested with you, right? So it's easier to sell them on a revision rather than sell them after you told them 99 things why they couldn't do what they originally wanted to do. Because you're ultimately trying to revise their dream, their goal, right? So, hey, I know you want it in purple, but what about this pink? Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Instead of like, okay, cool, you want purple? Here, come on, I got that, right? And say, oh shit, the only thing we got left is pink. But hey, it's already in the bag, right? So it's a little easier to kind of transition from there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just go with it. And then she even knew. She goes, I know my loan's value is going to be at 80 with this number. I was like, yeah, so if it comes in.
Yeah, see, a lot of them have these certain like it's old-fashioned like wisdom, right? Like, oh, I have to have 80% loan in value to avoid mortgage insurance, but we know that they can go to 95 and have no mortgage insurance, right? And so it just depends on how we tell them and the timing that we tell them. So a lot of inexperienced new loan officers or low-producing loan officers will take it as opportunity to say, oh, but hey, we have loan programs at 95%, no mortgage insurance, because we were so excited that we just learned it, right? But instead, just talk to them. So if it does come back, say, you know what, I got an idea. I'm gonna see if I can get my manager to waive the mortgage insurance, but you know what he's gonna want? He's gonna want all these steps from you. He's gonna wanna see some sort of sign of commitment. So I'm gonna need your tax returns, your W-2s, your pay stubs. You think you can get those over to me? Once I get a full file, I'm gonna bring it up to my manager, I'm gonna see if we can get rid of that mortgage insurance for you. As opposed to saying, yeah, I got LPMI program. What the fuck? Right? Is that you gave it up too easy. So you're painting the picture and you're creating that perception where you are that guy, right? So that they feel like, oh man, you know what, Mo's gonna go up the bat for me. No, Mo's the guy. I could talk to any of these other lenders, but you know, he's gonna be the one that's gonna get me the exception, right? Cool, makes sense? All right, other questions that came up?
For me, like I've had a couple people that, I mean, obviously we're newer junior LOs, and so you get a call and the guy's like, yeah, well, I've been watching the Fed cut and all blah blah blah, and they're like talking on. I'm like, I honestly, I barely know what you're talking about, you know, and like I'm just like, yeah, well, I can still look at see what we can do for you, but like they're like, well, if the rate's like this and the treasury's like that, I don't know if I want to move forward. Like, how do you deal with people that either act or really do know a lot and maybe even more than we do?
Yeah. So number one is they don't know that you don't know, and number two is that's typically their defense mechanism because they don't want you to take advantage of them. So they're using words like, yeah, I've been watching the T-bond.
Yeah.
What the hell's a T-bond? Right? It was, oh yeah, I watched the Treasury bill. I watched ESPN. Say, okay, awesome, great. Right? It makes no sense, but they, even though we don't know it. So they'll say that to kind of make them feel bigger than they are, so that you feel intimidated. So the key thing is that number one, they don't know how much you don't know, right? And number two is if you follow that script, it's never going to allow them to even take control of the conversation to tell them or to tell you that they know this, that, or the other, right? Because they shouldn't be controlling the conversation to begin with. They shouldn't even have an opening to tell you, hey, so I watched the market and I know the Treasury bill does this and the Fed meeting is going to do this. If that ever does happen, because it does happen, like, hey, aren't the interest rates going to drop down lower? You say, you know what, they maybe, but over the last week they've actually been increasing. One thing is for sure is that because I represent a direct lender, only thing I could show you is what the market has to offer today, right? So I'm not going to show you a marketing that's out, like a marketing ad that's outdated when the market was good last Tuesday, right? Because that's what you're looking at now. Mm-hmm. A lot of those ads were prepared a week ago and the market shifted 4 times since Monday. Now you're creating an urgency, right? Say, but here, watch, let me show you. And that's where it comes back in again. So that's more of kind of a default answer, that where you address it, but then you take it back, right? So there are certain default statements where you have to learn how to re-control the conversation, but they feel like they got the answer. And so if they mention things that you don't know about or are uncomfortable, just make note of it and come together with just a default answer. So my default answer, if they mention something that I'm not familiar with, so you know what, that's a great question. I'm gonna go and make a note of that, and I'll definitely get the answer for it, right? But I guess it also depends on the context. So if they say, well, what do you think the rate's gonna be tomorrow? I know probably more than likely if the market trend continues as it has this week, it's probably gonna be higher than what it is today. That's what I would say, right? And even if the market was dipping low, because we get emails that show you where the market condition is, and when you see red ink, some LOs will fold. And they're like, oh shit, it's gonna be a rough day. Why, right? I never paid attention to the rate sheet. Never paid attention to the rate. Like why? Because that doesn't control it. What controls it is the desired result that the prospect wants. So if I can give you the results that you want at a 5.99, just because the interest rate isn't 3.5, it doesn't mean I'm not gonna, have confidence in giving you that 5.99. Right?
You mind if I add into that?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think just from being, loan officer, is that you'll get these questions that come in, and like Daniel says, like when I wasn't really paying attention either. But we always have these go-to things that we would say that would mimic the up and down thing, right? We're in the mortgage industry, we're in the front lines, and we do see the market change quite often. Right now, applications are down or applications are up, right? We always have our go-to up and down things we can say. Now, once you start to figure out what those up and down things that you can go with, all you need to do is say something, and then you segue into the next question. Then that's, like Daniel said, taking control back the call and then moving forward with it, right?
Yeah. But oftentimes, what happens is if you're not controlling the conversation, they're asking the questions. So the one who actually asks the questions is in control of the conversation, right? The one who's answering the questions is the one not in control. So the sales script is effective because it positions you right from the gate to be the one to ask you questions. That's why I say, hey, you know what, before I go any further, let me ask you just a few basic questions. That's me getting control of the conversation, right? You have to stay in control. Otherwise, if you even, like one thing I never really do, unless it's at the end of my recorded call script, is say, do you have any questions? I never say that throughout the conversation. I never talk about numbers, I never talk about price, because I need to paint the picture like I was telling you. It's our option to paint the picture that they perceive, right? So if they perceive that I'm gonna put together options, then I buried my own, I dug up my own grave. Now I'm walking into a pitch with them believing that it's gonna be a pitch. So if I'm transitioning to my pitch call by saying, okay, I'm gonna put a couple options together, maybe 2 or 3 different options, and I'll call you back at 4 o'clock to go through those options. You're setting them up for a pitch. So what's very effective, or that I found very effective, is that at the end of the conversation, before I transition to the second call, they believe that all I'm doing is putting together what the market can give them, right? So I'm not a broker. I don't charge high retail costs or high retail rates, and I don't charge broker points. As a direct lender, I can only show you what you qualify for. So based on this information, I'm going to go and put that together now. I'm going to request a copy of your credit report. What's your date of birth, right? So they're just feeling like I'm just going to put it together and say, okay, great. So now after I get all the information, say, okay, I'm going to go put the details together. Once I have it ready, you'll receive an email to let you know it's ready for review. If I run it, and you'll probably hear me say this if you guys hear me, right? If I run into any hiccups or have any questions, I'll call you first before I send it out. So now they're ready for my call. They're actually looking forward to answering the phone on my call. But little did they know, about 10 minutes before I even said that, I already figured out when they're going to be home, because I asked them, hey, when are you going to be by a home computer or a tablet to give a consent for the disclosures? So I say that on purpose because I don't want them to think they could do it at work. But I also want to know when they're going to be at home, right? And so if they say I'm going to be home at 6, chances are at 5:30 they're in commute. So I've gotten myself that 30-minute gap. So if I need to conference call the wife or give him a call, I know that their distraction is minimal because I'm on the Bluetooth of their car, right? So I don't have email alerts, meetings, lunchtime, these things distracting them. And then I can pull in all the parties at once. But my pitch is ultimately me giving them a call because I ran into a couple hiccups, right? Because again, they never felt like I was gonna pitch them. They just felt like the only reason why I would call is if I had any questions before I release it out. And again, what keeps them attracted to you is that you kind of dangle that carrot. And so like, hey, I got it. Well, but wait, let me ask you a few questions first, right? Oh yeah, here, check this out. We could do this. But hey, but you know what? Let me just, so you're constantly taking it away. And so by the end of the conversation, they want to see what you have, because I never talked about rate. I never talked about fees. I never talked about any of that. I just talked about what they actually qualify for. And so then in my pitch call, it's because I found something and I have an idea. I want to run it by you, right? And so you present your pitch that way. See, the problem is that most LOs believe that you need to bring 1 or 2 or 3 different options, and that's where you're going wrong. You should already know so much about that prospect. You know the exact needs that they have, right? Why would I give you option 1, 2, or 3 when I know that this is going to achieve everything that you need, right? But you're saying it in a different way. So you're, instead of saying, hey, I got this Fannie ICAN, right? ICANN loan, or I got this 30-year fix. I'm not saying it that way. So I'm saying, hey, you know what? I noticed all these comments on the credit bureaus are really trashing your score because of your debts, and then I noticed that on the conversation you said you only got $2,000 in the bank, and I noticed that every single month you had mentioned because of the daycare costs you barely have any money to put in your savings account, right? So I got an idea and I wanted to run it by you, see what you think. I can actually create $5,000 in surplus cash flow immediately from an escrow refund and a payment deferral. You could put that towards a credit card debt, remove these comments, improve your FICO, put 3 months of living in your bank, right? Pay off all of your debt, and put you in a position where in 6 months your FICO score will be so high you can actually take down your loan term by 5 years, saving you 60 payments off the life of your loan, which happens to equate out to $110,000. What's your thoughts on that? Yeah, how the fuck do we do that? Right? Okay, cool. So this is how, right? And then you close it.
I had a question. I noticed when you said something just a little bit earlier in the conversation. You said something to the effect where you said about the e-consent agreement. So you say when you can be near your computer. So basically, what I'm basically alluding to is you never send out. From the sounds of what you're saying, you never say, "Oh, I'm going to send you out this e-consent agreement," until you find out if they're in front of a computer or
right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my ace up the sleeve.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Get it.
Because I need that to control where they're going to be.
Right.
Right. So that's and ultimately what happens is that gives me enough leverage for them to do it right away.
Right.
Because if I email it to them and then they don't like what I hear, they're never going to consent. Right. And then we end up fucking mailing it out. Not only that, but then it ends up me chasing them for 5 days, and I don't want to chase. You guys don't want to chase either, especially in this market right now. Yeah.
What's the name of the website where we get the script again?
SalesRemastered.com. You want to use your personal email address. Don't use your work email because NAF will quarantine it. So probably kick it back.
SalesRemastered.com.
Yeah. So use the
Personal
email address you get on your cell phone, because anytime you can just pull it up. Because if you print it out, it's a ton of ink. The pages are black, and there's a video directory on there, so it's got a lot of helpful content on there. Yeah.
I have a question. Because a lot of people are starting out. So I don't know if they already asked you this question. So, very beginning stages, right? So when these guys are getting out on the phones, right? I find that a lot of times people have a hard time finding their uniqueness, meaning that they are not being themselves. Right? So you get on the phone, some of the most common things is acting too much like a customer care person, or sounding too salesy. But I do find that people when they start doing better, you can see by the numbers, is that they always say that they found their voice.
Yeah.
Now, is there something that you can tell these guys on how that would feel, or how how to get away from that too salesy customer service, or too much of a servant or being a bitch?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm sure everyone here has friends, right, outside this circle. So, have you ever been referred to another friend because you had the hookup on something? Like maybe you worked at Best Buy back in the day, or maybe you had something that you could sell them out the trunk of your car, right? So the reason why I'm saying that is because if you think about the tonality you use when you're the one who's actually talking to a friend, right? Like you're talking to your friend, like saying, like, hey man, I'm having my buddy give you a call about those 2 speakers you're selling, right? When that buddy gives me a call, I'm not talking, hey, how you doing? Thank you so much for giving me a call about the 2 speakers. Jay said that you would give me a call, right? I was like, yeah, what's up, man? Okay, cool. Yeah, you want to check out those speakers? Check this out, right? It's a different tonality. So you kind of envision that. I used to use the analogy of, like, imagine how like you would talk to your auntie or your cousin, right? When you talk to your auntie, your cousin, or some of you, I don't want to say your mom or your dad because then you'll talk to them like little dicks. No, I'm just no, see, I wasn't raised by my parents and shit, so sometimes I take that shit to heart. Like, no, I'm just kidding. I'm sure all of you are respectful to your parents. But what I'm saying is like your auntie, uncle, your brother, your cousin, like the way you talk to them, you talk to them. Like you just talk to them. You're not trying to sell them or frazz them or whatever. Right? It's like the girl or the guy that you're not necessarily interested in, so you're not talking to them like you want to date them. Right? There's just that kind of dialogue or that uniqueness. But I think at the root of it, the reason why we try to change ourselves is because we're trying to be hired for a job. Right? And that's ultimately what we are. We were trying to be the one that they hired to complete their loan process. But instead, if you can actually change your perception and make it seem almost as if you're the employer, right? So turn the tables and really come off like, hey, I'm the expert. There's the reason why you called me is because I'm the one that's licensed. I know what you need. So understand that you have more leverage than you think because you understand this process and not everyone understands this process, right? So just be very careful on that, man.
And just like what you're saying, where does that confidence come from? Like, you know?
Yeah. Confidence mainly really just comes from repetition. But one fast way to do it is just to make it a game. Make it a game meaning that you're not scared to lose, right? Mm-hmm. It's a game. So role play is huge. Like when I was coming up, role play, like we used to have this thing called bull in the pin. I think it was called bullpen. And so we would sit like an LO in the middle and we'd go like round table and we just hit them with these objections. And then from the objection they'd have to spit out the rebuttal and then we'd take turns. But that, we don't do that nowadays. It's weird. We used to hit each other with objections. Hey, your rate's too high. And then I would just naturally have to, because it was a game, right? And that's where your repetition came from. You didn't necessarily have to practice on prospects. So, but I do suggest though is that you guys do pay attention to the objections that you get that you can't overcome and write them down. Because if you know that you are always getting hit with, man, I can't seem to get around the objection of what's your cost, I'm always losing them, right? Then write that shit down and practice it. Like literally practice. Because the faster you're able to overcome that and master that, the more money you're gonna make. What the hell are we here for if you're not here to make more sales, right? I'm definitely not here for the overtime. You know what I mean? So like really think about that. Another form of confidence is morning rituals. You have to have some time where it's just not all about the grind. It's not about work. It's really about you. Mm-hmm. It's about your mental clarity. Whether it's like going to the gym or some people meditate, some people read a book. Because what happens when you start to implode and you lose confidence is because you're burnt out. And you get to a point where you're selling from a position of desperation because you haven't put any sales up, right? So you gotta be very kind of just grateful for what the opportunities that we have, and know that even if you didn't make a sale, you're okay because that engagement you're gonna learn so much from that it's gonna just leave you better off on your next engagement. You see what I'm saying? Where LOs seem to go backwards or they lose and they go on this losing streak is they don't understand how to adapt. And so they continuously use one method and one method only, regardless. So one method, door slam. One method, door slam. Next thing you know, it's 99 door slammed in their face. I'm like, fuck! They start getting mad. But why don't you just switch it up?
change it, right? If they don't answer to this type of knock, fucking have fun with it. Right? Like, switch it up. Yeah. Aha, gotcha. So that worked, right? And then now what do? You know, so it's all a matter, and that's what I mean by it being a game, you know, and record yourself. Like, invest in a recorder. You guys got recorders on your phones, and really record yourself and analyze yourself. You're gonna be your best critic.
I noticed Kevin Garcia, he was on your, first of all, seems like everybody on your team has a lot of success. Obviously, they learned it from you and some things that you do. You know, you have, obviously, you know what you're talking about. I mean, just listening to you is very motivational.
I think just letting them run their desk,
Right.
you know, that not necessarily me being all over them. I think me just making it a game, you know. So my team, I'm constantly, if you guys ever see that scoreboard that I have up on my screen, it's an Excel sheet with the colors and points. I'm on the scoreboard with them, right? So if I've got points and like just this morning, I'm telling them, like, hey bro, I beat you yesterday. Don't let your SM beat you. That's fucking embarrassing, right? But I don't blast him in front of the team. I hit him directly, right? So it's a one motivation to him.
Right.
But nonetheless, it's a game. So every single day they reset, and we all start at 0, and we're all trying to get as many points on the board.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the question I was going to ask you is, I was listening to Kevin, I think we've all heard him say it, where he says something to the effect, it's about points, where he says, this is not New American selling you these points, it's Fannie Mae, or it's the VA, or it's FHA.
Yeah.
Is that something that was implemented into your script? Is that something he learned from you, or is that just something that...
No, Kevin's been in the business for a long time,
Right.
you know, so he has, like, he calls it the rate department.
Right.
You know, it's just that's what I mean, is like, he's a good example of us controlling the perception.
Right.
Right? And so you could use the same effect on FHA and VA loans and say, hey, it's not New American Funding charging that upfront MIP, or it's not New American Funding charging you that funding fee, it's actually VA.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Same thing with like the interest rates. Well, I'm going to show you exactly what Fannie Mae can give you, right? This is what Fannie Mae can give you today. Since I'm a direct conduit to Fannie Mae, I can only show you what you can get. Like, I'm not a broker who's going to show you the lowest rate, but then slip in, you know, hidden fees and hidden points, right? So he's really planting seeds to deter them away from speaking to the competition, while at the same time saving face, making them believe that it's Fannie Mae charging those points if they choose to get that interest rate, right? So, but at the end of the day, how the sale should really occur is they need to be bought in on the result, right? So in an exact order of every single pitch needs to be framed, like you're framing them, you're putting them back into the mental state of what they want, right? So all the information you gather from the first conversation, the high credit card debt, the check-to-check living, the low FICO, you start your pitch off with that. And I'm not just saying, hey, based on the conversation, you got shit credit, you got nothing in the bank, you don't beat them up like that, right? Yeah, just say, hey, you know what, you mentioned earlier in the call that there was no money in the bank, it's really done a number on your FICO, right? You got all this credit card debt eating your cash flow. So you're positioning yourself, you're framing them. And then from there, then you go to the result, the solution. You know what? I think what we could do is rid all the credit card debt, help boost up your FICO, put $8,000 in your month in your checking and savings. Now there's a solution there before all the numbers are talked, right? And say how we're going to do it is because we're actually going to be able to drop your payment. And what I did was I did the math. You're paying this much on your mortgage, this much on your credit cards, which is a total of $25. I think I can get it down to $1,800. Now I got you sold on the payment, right? Now also you're going to get a payment deferral and escrow refund, which is going to put $5,000 inside your pocket. Just automatically. Now I've got them wanting that. Does that make sense? So now that they're sold, then I talk about the logistics. Say, okay, but I can't offer you a lock yet until I verify that you actually qualify for the loan. So I just need to validate income. It's super easy. Pay stubs, W-2s. I'm talking about the logistics, how to get it, right? So if you can have that over to me, I can ask my manager if I can get this exception that's going to lower your overall payment by $600, so you can then reiterate the framing, so that you can put more money in your bank, remove the FICO or the comments on your FICO, or that's weighing down your FICO score, and help build up your credit, help position you more favorably for financing, right? So now they understand what they need to do, they want it, and now we talk about the terms, because that's when you go over the lock script. But they're so bought in already that they don't care if it was points or fees or cost. But then the question is, but how did I know that they would want it? You don't know if they want it. You know what they want as a result, but whatever the cost of the ticket at the gate is, that's just something that they got to accept.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yes.
You want to go see the show, fucking, you pay the cost at the gate.
Yeah.
You got it?
Right.
So a lot of LOs, we're worried about the cost of the ticket. So, man, I got a ticket. Okay, you could sit front row for this much. You could sit back here for this much. You could sit, what do they call it? Nosebleed seats
Right.
for this much. Which one do you want, Jim? Right? Then no one's even talking about the damn show.
Right.
Like, oh man, this show's gonna be great. So you gotta really kind of think about that. It's very methodical, very systematic. Answer your question?
It does, and your script kind of goes over these things. It kind of covers it.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
everything?
absolutely. It's a directory of all kinds of content. If you guys aren't watching the videos on YouTube, every single day there's a piece of content that's being uploaded, and you should definitely incorporate that in your morning routine because I mean, there's LOs that constantly hit me on the DM saying, D, man, I made so much money from all these lessons. And these LOs aren't even paying me for shit, but I just like putting it out there because if you can position yourself as a point of authority, then that can help me 5-10 years from now, so I don't need to peddle loans all my life.
Yeah. Last question.
Yeah.
That's not right. So, I mean, for the most part, I know you get questions on how do you do this, and, what's the exact way I do this. So this question is more into regards of being creative, using your imagination, and, those type, just the creative realm. So when people enter this area of first time doing sales or even mortgage, people are afraid of going next to that line and making it seem more, exclusive and things like that. So for an example, I'm saying like, if someone called in and you gave them a program, and people are like, yeah, we have this Freddie Home Possible program, and then they basically are telling them the program, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just keeping it, hey, we have this exclusive program. I mean, what's your advice for these guys that want to get more creative? Because obviously you've gotten creative on your own, right? This is something that, not everyone can do. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any advice for these guys to get next to that line without crossing it?
Yeah, for sure. So it was easier when I was coming up because when I was coming up as a loan officer, there's only two programs. There's a 30-year fix and a two-year fix with a 3-year prepay, right? So we were only able to choose between one or the other. And so did it stop recording?
The battery thing came out. Is it still recording? Does that mean it's still recording? The battery thing came out.
Which battery?
When it has that.
There's an alert on there.
Alert.
Stop it.
Oh, it did?
Does it stop anything?
Oh, I don't know. It's all good, no worries.
Okay.
Thanks though. So, it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge now because you have so many different options where you're going to want to kind of go over it because you just learned it, right? And so that's kind of something that newer agents they cause their own tripwires because because you just learned about this program and you're so excited to talk about it. It's like the brand new car, right? But the real objective is to first figure out what problems they have, and actually where the creativity comes in is where you actually solve that problem, right? But solve it without using the lingo that becomes confusing. So instead of saying, hey, I got this Freddie Mac Home Possible loan, like what is that, right? What you say is that, hey, you know what, we got this program that we do here that does this, this, and this, and this, and this is the solution that they're looking for, right? Because there's no point in talking about a particular program unless it actually has something to do with them. If it's not applicable to them, you've lost their interest and they don't want to talk to you anymore. But even worse is that if you start talking about things that they are not familiar with, it's Spanish to them. So unknowingly, you're going to push them farther away from you because they have no idea what you're saying. But what they do understand is the situation that they're in, and your creativity comes in with actually combining and kind of fusing in the two, right? So I know that let's say Jim's hurting because of his debt load. He's relying on overtime, and even though he gets paid a lot of overtime, he's still check to check. I know to zero in on that and say, hey, what if you lost your overtime? What would you do? Right? Creativity. So I'm thinking outside the box. But the average LO would just say, how much you earn every year? 112 grand? Got it. Put it in and not even really think about asking deeper questions. Like, is any of that overtime? how often are you working overtime? Did overtime drop, right? Because we're not thinking about it as them. We're not empathetic as they are. So when you actually apply it to your own living, like right now, like if you didn't make any sales, how the hell are you going to pay your bills? All right? So it's kind of like them. Like if you didn't work overtime, which right now you're check to check, how do you pay this bill? How do you pay that bill? What's your nest egg? What's your plan B? Right? Because that's what's going to create urgency, is finding what their fears are, finding out the consequence. See, a lot of people, when they sell, they're more focused on two things. Number one is why they won't buy, right? Oh, they're not going to buy because they're not going to like the rate. They're not going to buy because they don't like the fee. But instead, really look at it and focus on, well, why should they buy? Right? Well, they should buy because it's going to improve their FICO. They should buy because it's going to pay off their debt. They should buy because of this, this, and this. And that's how you should come into it, because when you present it, you're going to need that confidence and that bravado in your tone. Like, right? Because if you're selling with a hint of doubt, like, oh man, they're not going to buy it, they're going to read that from you. You're going to fumble your words. You're going to get, are you sure you want to move forward? Like, even you're shocked. Are you sure? All right. What do you mean? All right, yeah, no, I don't want to move forward anymore. Okay, whew. What the hell? So you don't want to put yourself in that position. Yeah. Cool? Was it pretty helpful?
Yeah.
Good stuff?
Lots and lots.
Yeah? All right, man. I know there's a lot of details. Hopefully I can put this up on YouTube. You guys can rewatch it. But I strongly recommend to do two things. Number one is get a copy of that script. And number two, get onto the channel. If you guys are on Instagram, add SalesRemastered to your feed. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, add SalesRemastered to your feed.
Yeah.
Because you're going to see content drip, pieces here and there, that is really just going to make you look at your sales in a different way. And what's cool about it is it's a fucking profession that you do all day, every day. And it fucking determines your income. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to, you know what I mean? Like, hey, dude's got the answers. So get on it, and any likes, comments, and shares I appreciate in advance. Cool? Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, man. That's awesome. Thank you very much.